Okay, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this 66th session of the Commission on the Status of Women Parallel Event, the Gender Equality and Social Inclusion Promising Practices in IRED and Moringa Project Wahana Visi Indonesia. My name is Sarah.
And I am Adit from Child Forum Wahana Visi Indonesia, will become your MC in this session. In this virtual event, we will listen to the voice, rules, ideas, and challenges of women and girls from East Nusa Tenggara, Indonesia, to save their families and community from climate crisis by regenerating their land and promoting green and gender-inclusive financing with the help of Wahana Visi Indonesia Community Development Projects.
But before we are going through this event, let me inform you that this event will have two sessions that will introduce you about two projects. The first project is Indonesia Rural Economic Development, or we can call it as IRED, a climate change adaptation project with gender equality and social or GESI promising practices. The second is Moringa Project, or More Income Generated for Poor Families in Indonesia, a sustainable economic development project that promotes gender-inclusive finance in the household. So, ladies and gentlemen, please stay in the room during the 90-minute session.
In this Zoom webinar, video, microphone, and chat will be disabled for all participants. Please post your question and comment in the Q&A room. Please turn on the interpretation or the transcription function when you need it. This session is recorded and you can watch it again later on Wahana Visi Indonesia YouTube channel.
Ladies and gentlemen, IRED was a project implemented by Wahana Visi Indonesia and also supported by the Australian government to the Australian NGO, increase sustainable economic development in Haharu, Isumba through farmer-managed natural regeneration and local value chain development. The IRED project, albeit not specifically designed to address GESI issues, had resulted in indication of GESI promising practices. And now, please welcome young women and girls representative from the IRED community to share their involvements during the project. Please turn on the English interpretation function as it will be conducted in Bahasa Indonesia. I offer to Adit.
Thank you, Kak Sarah. Halo semuanya, saya Adit. Bersama saya telah hadir Kak Idianti Morangguana dan juga Kak Putri Endaimbana, perwakilan anak perempuan dari komunitas IRED di Haharu, Sumba Timur. Selamat malam Kak Idianti dan Kak Putri.
Selamat malam Kak.
Aku manggilnya benar ya Kak Idianti dan Kak Putri ya?
Benar Kak.
Baik, terima kasih. Baik, sebelumnya mungkin hadirin di sini ingin berkenalan dengan Kak Putri dan juga Kak Idianti. Boleh mungkin memperkenalkan diri, mulai dari Kak Putri.
Hai, selamat malam semuanya. Perkenalkan, nama saya Putri Daimbana. Biasa dipanggil Putri. Saya berusia 23 tahun. Saya berasal dari Desa Kalamba. Rutinitas saya sehari-hari sebagai petani.
Baik, boleh dilanjut dengan Kak Idianti.
Ya, perkenalkan nama saya Idianti Murangguna, biasa dipanggil Idianti. Saya dari Desa Batapuhu, umur 18 tahun. Kegiatan saat ini masih dalam bangku pendidikan sekolah menengah atas.
Baik, wah ternyata keren-keren banget ini pastinya nanti ya. Baik, Kak Idianti dan Kak Putri, boleh gak sih menceritakan tentang awal mula terlibat di program IRED Wahana Visi Indonesia? Dan saat terlibat itu, Kak Putri dan Kak Indi pada usia berapa? Dan juga kegiatan apa saja yang sudah dilakukan? Boleh, Kak Idianti?
Jadi, awal mula saya terlibat dalam mengikuti program IRED Wahana Visi Indonesia pada tahun 2014. Usia saya 10 tahun, waktu saya duduk di sekolah dasar. Waktu itu saya dan teman-teman sekolah saya diajak oleh guru untuk melakukan pelotang dan menanam pohon. Dan pohon yang kami tanam yaitu pohon jati, pohon gambalina, dan pohon mahuni.
Wah, berarti saat mengikuti kegiatan tersebut, Kak Idianti masih sangat muda ya, 10 tahun. Baik, selanjutnya boleh dari Kak Putri, silakan.
Ya, awalnya orang tua saya mengikuti kegiatan FPI, yaitu menanam pohon. Nah, orang tua saya juga pernah menceritakan bahwa menanam pohon itu baik bagi kita dan lingkungan kita jadi hijau. Nah, ada seorang guru Injil yang mengajak saya untuk mengikuti kegiatan tersebut dari kegiatan IRED. Nah, saya langsung tertarik karena saya sudah pernah mendengar kegiatan itu sudah bisa bermanfaat bagi kita. Kegiatan yang pernah saya ikuti, yang pertama kegiatan membuat tracering, kedua yaitu membuat batas api, ketiga menanam pohon dengan cara memangkas ranting-ranting yang banyak dengan yang mati. Keempat, cara menanam yang baik dan memberikan pupuk yang benar. Saya mengikuti kegiatan tersebut, saya berusia 23 tahun.
Baik, terima kasih. Ternyata banyak sekali kegiatan yang dilakukan oleh Kak Putri dan juga Kak Idianti. Ya, para hadirin juga bisa dapat mendengarkan bahwasanya memang ketika terlibat dalam kegiatan ini, Kak Putri dan Kak Idianti masih sangat muda. Baik, untuk selanjutnya, apakah manfaat nih yang masih dirasakan oleh Kak Idianti dan Kak Putri setelah terlibat dalam kegiatan IRED? Boleh dari Kak Idianti mungkin?
Ya, Kak. Sebelumnya padang kami gersang rumput tinggi, kalau musim panas rawan terbakar. Setelah terlibat dalam kegiatan IRED, kami diajarkan menanam pohon dan palotang. Setelah itu, padang menjadi hijau dan tidak terjadi lagi kebakaran. Cuacanya tidak terlalu panas, anak-anak jadi lebih senang dan nyaman bermain.
Baik, wah ternyata masih banyak sekali manfaat yang dirasakan setelah mengikuti kegiatan IRED tersebut. Mungkin Kak Putri juga ada manfaat yang dirasakan, silakan.
Manfaat yang dirasakan dari IRED, ya syukurlah sudah memuaskan. Mengapa saya mengatakan tersebut? Karena dulunya pembuatan tracering kami belum mengetahui. Dulunya kebun kami terkikis oleh air hujan dan banjir. Jadi hasilnya kurang memuaskan. Nah, sekarang kami sudah mengetahui cara pembuatan tracering atau lubang genangan air. Nah, jadi kebun kami juga tidak lagi terkikis oleh air hujan dan banjir. Nah, hasilnya pun sudah memuaskan. Selain itu, ada juga yaitu pembuatan batas api. Nah, dulunya kami belum mengetahui cara membuat batas api. Nah, padang kami sudah mengalami kebakaran. Nah, sekarang adanya proyek IRED ini, kami sudah mengetahui cara pembuatan batas api. Nah, sekarang kami sudah melakukan pembuatan batas api, jadi kebakaran pun jarang masuk. Adapun yaitu menanam pohon. Dulunya kami belum melakukan menanam pohon di sekitar gereja, sekolah, maupun kantor desa. Nah, sekarang kami sudah melakukan menanam pohon dengan membersihkan pohon-pohon yang sudah ada. Jadi sekolah pun jadi hijau, gereja pun hijau, dan kantor desa pun sudah hijau. Masih ada lagi yaitu cara menanam yang bagus. Dulunya kami belum mengetahui cara menanam yang benar. Nah, sekarang kami sudah diajarkan cara menanam yang benar dan memberikan pupuk yang benar. Hasilnya pun sudah memuaskan. Mungkin hanya itu saja.
Baik, wah ternyata banyak sekali manfaat yang mungkin bisa kita rasakan dan juga bisa teman-teman rasakan di daerah Kak Putri dan juga Kak Idianti. Nah, tadi di awal Kak Putri dan Kak Idianti sudah menjelaskan tentang kegiatan apa saja yang sudah dilakukan. Nah, mungkin apakah kegiatan tersebut ini masih terus dilakukan sampai sekarang atau tidak nih Kak? Boleh Kak Idianti?
Ya, masih dilakukan sampai sekarang. Khususnya palotang, memangkas rumput-rumput yang ada di sekitar sekeliling pohon.
Baik. Kalau Kak Putri juga berarti masih berlanjut seperti itu Kak Putri?
Iya Kak, sekarang kami masih melanjutkan kegiatan tersebut walaupun proyek AIRET sudah berhenti. Nah, proyek yang kami jalani sekarang yaitu menanam pohon, membuat batas api dengan cara menanam yang bagus.
Wah, ternyata masih banyak sekali kegiatan yang dilakukan setelah program ini juga berakhir dan juga di sini Kak Idianti dan Kak Putri masih menjalankan manfaat-manfaat dan juga benefit-benefit yang sudah didapatkan setelah mengikuti kegiatan tersebut. Nah, yang terakhir nih Kak, adakah manfaat yang terus dirasakan nih sama Kak Indi dan juga Kak Putri sampai saat ini setelah mengikuti proyek tersebut meskipun proyek AIRET ini berakhir sekarang gitu? Boleh dari Kak Idianti.
Ya, manfaat yang dirasakan sampai saat ini, selain desa kami tidak gersang lagi, bisa dipakai untuk membangun rumah, membuat meja, dan ranting-ranting yang dipangkas bisa digunakan untuk dijadikan kayu bakar.
Baik, kalau Kak Putri sendiri?
Manfaat yang dirasakan saat sekarang ini, kami sudah bisa mengambil bibit dari pohon yang kami sudah tanam untuk menanam anakan yang baru lagi. Kami sudah bisa menjual hasil pohon yang kami tanam untuk dijual menabung untuk anak-anak kami nanti untuk biaya sekolahnya. Nah, pohon-pohon ini juga kami bisa potong untuk membuat rumah. Dan kami sebagai perempuan tidak jauh lagi untuk mengambil kayu bakar. Nah, sekarang sekolah kami, gereja kami, kantor desa kami, lingkungan keluarga kami jadi hijau juga. Dan sejuk. Mungkin hanya itu saja, Kak. Terima kasih.
Baik, wah ternyata banyak sekali manfaat yang dirasakan sampai saat ini juga masih tetap diterapkan ilmu-ilmunya dan juga manfaatnya juga pasti di lingkungan Kak Putri dan Kak Idianti banyak sekali yang merasakan manfaat tersebut. Terima kasih Kak Putri dan Kak Idianti telah membagikan sedikit cerita tentang program AIRET dan juga terima kasih juga telah meluangkan waktu Kak Putri dan Kak Idianti. Selamat malam Kak Putri dan Kak Idianti.
Ya,
Selamat malam.
Baik, akan ku kembalikan lagi ke MC kita Kak Sarah. Silakan Kak Sarah.
Okay, thank you, Adit. So, ladies and gentlemen, next we will be presenting the IRED JC Promising Practice Research Result. Please welcome the researcher team from Gender Research Center, School of Strategic and Global Studies, University of Indonesia. I will present Dr. Mia Siskawati, Miss Shelley Adelina, Miss Katarina Indira Stuti, Miss Ratna Sari, Miss Rizka Karina Rosliana, and Miss Marta Hebi. For this session, if you have any question during the presentation, please write it in the Q&A box. And I will over to Dr. Mia Siskawati.
Thank you very much, Mbak Sarah, SMC. So good evening, everyone. On behalf of the research team of the Center for Gender Research of Universitas Indonesia, I'd like to do a presentation about the key findings of JC Dimensions of Indonesia Rural Economic Development IRA project of Wahana Visi Indonesia. And mainly we will be also presenting the lessons. Next, please. Okay, so this is a documentation of JC Promising Practices initiated by World Vision US and the research carried out by our research team in collaboration with Wahana Visi Indonesia. Next, please. Yeah, this is our research team as introduced by the MC. So with me now, Miss Marta Hebi, Miss Rizka, Karina Rosliana, Miss Ratnasari, and Miss Katarina Indrastuti. Miss Sally Adina is still having problem to enter the Zoom, so sorry about that, but she's part of the team. Next, please. So I'd like to start with the presenting, although all of you already watched the video. This is the ecological context of Sumba. Sumba Island is a semi-arid region with the lowest rainfall record in Indonesia, and Haharu sub-district is even the lowest of the Sumba Island, and mostly covered by savanna and also the rocky topography. Also, now since a couple of years ago, this island has been facing problem of massive pest attack of locusts in the last couple of years. And so far, actually, productivity of agricultural land is very low, and this is also among the most impoverished region in eastern Indonesia. That's why the IRA project is very important, that the project has been taking place in this island. Thank you. Next, please. So sociocultural context allow us to now share the sociocultural context. The most important part of the sociocultural context is the 3 social levels in East Sumba, where the project took place. So the first class is the Maramba, then this is the high class, and then the Kabihu is the middle class or the middle case, and then the Ata is the lowest case. Then each Maramba and Kabihu themselves also divided into sub classes. And the socio-cultural stratification has operated as hereditary system, so like passed into generations, and led the discrimination, especially among the lowest case or lowest class. And although nowadays, in certain conditions, the Ata as the lowest class or case could have access to higher education, but socially, culturally, the person, she or he, part of the Ata social group, will still face discrimination due to hereditary affiliation as Ata. Next, please. Okay, so in certain areas that still apply relatively strict social stratification, a number of households still have a number of people of different sex and age belonging to this lowest social case. And also the case of the arranged marriage between the Ata women and men, this is also contribute to the very complex situation, and in many cases arranged marriages are child marriages practices, because especially the young women who enter the marriages below 18 years old. Next, please. So gender and social norms and tradition in the areas of the IRA project is many women of social classes, also from the high class, middle to the lowest class, are responsible for domestic chores and other social reproductive activities. And in the highest class, the family with the members of the lowest class in their household, usually the domestic and productive roles are done by the Ata women, and usually it's part of like a kind of voluntary or work, and because of the exchange of the Ata people, men or women could stay with them with the families. And this is also the important information that women of all social classes have no customary right to inherit the land, but they have access to manage the lands of their husbands or male members of their families. In fact, they have very critical roles in managing the lands. And also women of all social classes and groups, including vulnerable and marginalized ones, have no role in customary decision-making of processes related to lands. So mainly the decision-making in terms of transferring the lands and as well as making like a big decision in terms of the land use. But decision on the management of the land in every day, the women has of course have a role. Next, please. Yeah, So this is like the repetition, but next point, there will be an example. This is example of the how the women having no role in customary decision-making process related to land. There's an elderly woman who lived by herself in Napu village, one of the village where we did the research. So when her husband was still alive, the family arranged a land owned by her father that she inherited because she was still living with the family after marriage. But then the land was relatively big, and they have like mixed trees and other crops. But when her husband passed away, then the land was decided by the males in the clan to be taken care by the relative family, and she no longer have access to managing the land. That's the one of the example. However, although again they have no role in decision making, then usually the family members would help these women to really continue to be able to continue their life. Next, please. So IRAD project, as already presented in the video, this is a project, a 5-year project designed to increase sustainable economic development of rural communities in Haharu Subdistrict, East Sumba District, eastern part of Indonesia. And IRAD project was implemented through a combination of the what's so-called Palotang. This is a local farmer-managed natural regeneration and local value chain development, LVCD. And the project has 4 main components that we in our research explore: the landscape rehabilitation and natural resource management, and then sustainable community income, then community and children capacity building for environmental management, to the green school program, and then strengthening governance at the community level. Next, please. So World Vision Indonesia found out that IRAD project, although not specifically designed to tackle gender equality and social inclusion problems, have resulted in some indication of JC promising practices. And this is the findings that then led to the initiation of this research. Next, please. So this research actually documenting JC evidence and lessons learned from IRAD project, and our team initiated or implemented the project based on JC framework to explore how the IRAD project encourages the improvement of access, participation, decision makings, and well-being of women, youth, children, and other vulnerable and marginalized groups. For the vulnerable and marginalized groups include women, men, as well as women and men with disabilities, youth, children, the elderly, widows, and women as of households, particularly of lower social class. We would like to note that all communities of the IRAD project, they are what so-called indigenous communities. What our attention mostly on the again, like vulnerable and marginalized members of the communities. Next, please. So the research location is in Haharu subdistricts, especially in 9 villages. The name of the village is Rambangaru, Praibaku, Kalamba, Kadahang, Batapuhu, Matai Pandangu, Napu, Wunga, Prailangina. All 9 villages share similar ecological and socio-cultural context with different parts of East Sumba. Next, please. Okay, this is just a table of ecological typology of the villages of the research location. You could see that this is the area like already presented in the video, that the ecological context is relatively different, mostly covered by savanna. Next, please. Okay, this is a qualitative research methods where the research team, we went to the field and then we did the primary data collection through several methods: focus group discussions, in-depth interviews, observation, and also participatory data collection techniques such as the drawing the village sketch, and then also seasonal natural resources management calendar, as well as other participatory data collection techniques. We also did secondary data collection from the mostly from project document review, but also from the official data available from the government sources and related sources. Next, please. Okay, the main research subjects or the informants for our research is women, men, adults, youth, boys and girls, people with disability, widows, girls in child marriage, elderly, victims of domestic violence who belong to vulnerable and marginalized groups. Main subjects are also represent 3 levels of social strata. So although we focus on the lowest social class, but also we include actually representatives from the other social classes. And we also interviewed the supporting research subjects. This is customary leaders, religious leaders, community organizers or mobilizers, teachers, women's groups, farmer groups, village and district governments. Next, please. Okay, this is a JC framework of the World Vision, where there are 5 domains: access, participations, decision-making, then system and well-being. That also like hopefully if 5 of them achieved, then the agency, then also the transformation and empowerment of women, girls, as well as vulnerable and marginalized groups would be achieved. Next, please. Okay, this is key findings. Allow us to present now the key findings. Next, please. So the first finding on the domain of access. So actually, we focus also the findings on the women's farmer groups, or in Indonesian we know as KWT or KWT. So by participating in the women's farmers group, that this group worked closely with IRA project, women of certain social groups who join this farmers group have access to seed, agricultural knowledge and skills, also post-harvesting skills into value-added products, because the IRA project then organized like a series of trainings as well as technical assistance to the members of this women's farmers group. Palutang activities, because this is a very special activity for IRA project. This is a local regeneration process of the natural resources in that area. The selections of participants was done by providing access to all registered families in the families. So this way, the Palutang activities then give opportunities to all members of the community as long as they are registered. So this provide wider access for families, including families from lowercase. However, there are a few numbers of actually members of the communities that are not yet registered officially because of the certain situation, including the child marriage practices. So and then for children and youth, a Green School program managed by AREX then actually targeted all students in the school regardless of the gender, case, class, and religion. And this approach, of course, then allowed children of all groups, social groups, including lowercase, to really have access to knowledge, have access to skills on environmental management. Next, please. So participation, IRA project encouraged active participation of women and children of different social groups, also different classes, who were involved in the project activities, and actually provided them to learn how to do public speaking. So speak up and then ask questions. At the beginning, this was not easy, but because they were not really used to, but then gradually they could build communication skills and gain confidence. So active participation in the project activities, along with the communication skills and confidence they gain, actually allowed them to be able to participate in the school meetings as well as government meetings. I mean, the meetings managed by village government. Girls, this is, for example, there's a little young girl, namely Rambu Mora from Napu village, was part of Green School program of AIRAT, feels that the access to knowledge and communication skills from this activity has made her more confident in articulating her thoughts and concerns at school. A girl from other village, Praibakul village, namely Grace, who was a winner of IRAT Children Ambassador, said the experience from Green School program led her to have important role in her village now, where she serves as the teacher for the early education program, or PAUD. Next, please. The next findings is about the domain of decision making. As we mentioned that although socially and culturally many women in the project location have not been involved in decision making about land use and land transfer at the family and community level, but IRAT project helped them to develop important role in decision making and managing certain areas, including kitchen gardens or food gardens in their yards. And project activities also help them building the technical agricultural knowledge and skills, and gradually enables them to build a specific role in decision making in managing these kitchen gardens. Decision-making related skills, including negotiation skills, were trained in IRAT activities, especially in selling crops, also products. This is many examples. Actually, we found out. Then one of them is Mrs. Tawuru May. This is one of the champions from Bunga village, received significant benefit from IRAT's capacity building in local value chain. So the negotiation skills that she had not only enabled her to have the ability to bargain, but also actually now she's really initiating the process to get the information about the price, and then she would be able to really negotiate, and not only in the past that she just received the price set up by the middle trader. Next, please. This is the domain of system. So IRAT project activities that gave opportunities for women, girls, and other individuals of vulnerable and marginalized groups to get actively involved, actually have planted what we call certain seeds toward potential steps that could contribute to the change of the socio-cultural system that still puts them as a subordinate. However, of course, this need to be really carefully planned and continued in the next interventions. So intensive capacity building process for women leaders of the women's farmers group by IRAT project has enabled them to play roles in the village government structure and programs. And all of this has potential actually to later gradually change the village governance system that in some villages is again still strongly influenced by the socio-cultural system. Another example of the system is related to the water management. The water management. So in Napu village, one women are part of the lower social case, appointed as the a member of the water management committee, and this is really enable her to also be able to have a kind of bargaining position with the other higher social class. Next, please. This is the last domain. It's about well-being. So several women leaders of the women's farmers group, actually three of them, this is three strong examples. They have high self-confidence, also strong capacity in community organizing that allowed them to not only work formally, but also appointed formally by the village government and continue the community organizing. Young girls who participated in Child Forum and Green School also, they gained better self-confidence and self-esteem through their experience of joining inter-school management. Next, please. This is still the well-being. So the overall well-being has been improved in the actually by the improvement of access to water in some villages, especially Kadanga, Bunga, Napu, and Prelangina. Although in some other villages, water is still actually a problem. So there's a young man with disability, Nicodemus, from Prelangina village, who has previously had problem fetching village, but the improvement of water access then helped him to really able to fetch the water in a more easy way. And then access to water also helps children to get water closer, and they have more time to study and play. For the women, especially the women of the vulnerable group and the marginalized group, the access to water also allows them to have more productive and also even have time for themselves, because like the time that's spent previously for taking care of water then could be used for other productive activities, including even time for themselves. Okay, next please. Yeah, so the lessons learned, since the IRA project was not originally designed with JC lens, there has been limited involvement of women and men of vulnerable and marginalized groups, but there are several positive learnings that makes IRA project has certain promising aspects that could be utilized to build more strategic steps toward JC-based transformation in the project location in the future. IRA project also enables women in the community to develop their leadership through some training and comparative study, and then the involvement in these activities improves their sense of confidence and self-esteem, and also this is very important for building the agency that lead to not only personal growth but also collective betterment. Next, please. Another lessons learned is the selection of the right person as community organizer or field facilitators in almost all villages have contributed to sustainability of certain activities in IRA projects. Of course, not all activities, but certain activities are very important, still continued because of this. Then also another lessons learned is the limited number of various social groups who serve as community organizers. They continue facilitating women and men of their communities in carrying out activities initiated by the project. There's a young man with disabilities in one village who was relatively active in IRA project activities, and this case actually proves that a person with disability has potential abilities that could positively contribute to the project, and this is also not only good for this young man but also for the community. Decision-making related skills among women of different social groups cultivated by IRA project has served the potential seed for the next step that could contribute to the process toward wider transformation in the decision-making processes at the household, clan, community, and village level. Next, please. Yeah, so recommendation, the future projects, we would like to recommend that the future projects need to include efforts to build critical consciousness and community organizing capacity among women's groups as well as vulnerable and marginalized groups, so that they will be able to organize themselves and to develop their group into self-help groups and to ensure the sustainability of approach offered by the future project. And the design of the future rural economic development projects need to adopt JC perspectives and approaches in the full project cycle. And as part of the designing process, comprehensive JC analysis needs to be carried out. Next, please. Then also the future projects needs to have full attention and consideration to the existence of variety of vulnerabilities in which each of them has JC dimension. And the future project should also have attention to different kinds of vulnerabilities and marginalities, including gender-related ones, that one varied from one village on one project to another village of another project location. And within the design of the future economic development project with JC perspectives, it is critical to identify and to include women and men as well, girls and boys of vulnerable and marginalized groups, including those with disabilities as project beneficiaries. And the future project and government initiatives should pay more attention on gender-related vulnerabilities in the project locations, such as child marriage, and other forms of gender-based slavery that could negatively influence well-being. Yes, so next, please, we would like to thank Malangu. Terima kasih and thank you very much. And I apologize for that, I took more time than planned by the program. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Mia, for the presentation. So I think we have one question, but it has been answered by, okay, there's no question else, so we can next to the next session. Ladies and gentlemen, I will thanks to Gender Research Center, School of Strategic and Global Studies, University of Indonesia team. Once again, thank you so much. And next, we will listen to remarks from GESI World Vision United States that has supported us in conducting the IRED GESI Promising Practice Research. Please welcome Dr. Jacqueline Olguega, Senior Director of GESI World Vision United States, who will be presenting GESI Approach and Theory of Change World Vision.
Thank you so much. Oh, wow. What a wonderful session we've had so far. Hello, everyone. It's an honor for me to hear these powerful voices of Indonesian women and youth dedicated to enhancing environmental and climate resilience for economic empowerment and well-being. I really enjoyed listening to Putri and Idiati, such powerful stories about care for the environment, including trees. And how that is important for our coexistence. And I really took their words of wisdom that when the climate is happy, the children are healthier and everything thrives. So thank you so much. And also very excited about the research that Professor Mia has just shared on VC Indonesia. It's really wonderful to see those findings come out. And I will be quick because I think Professor Mia has done the work for me. In the next slide, I will just share very quickly, very briefly about the approach that Professor Mia has already highlighted. As a faith-based humanitarian organization, World Vision is dedicated to working with the children and vulnerable adults worldwide to reach their full potential by tackling the root causes of poverty and injustice. So GESI is at the core of our mission. But in order for us to meet GESI, which is gender equality and social inclusion, we ask ourselves three questions. How do we ensure that our programs and interventions achieve measurable results and they report successful outcomes relating to GESI? How do we know that we're being effective in reaching and positively impacting the lives of the most vulnerable children and adults, particularly those facing gender inequality and social exclusion? And how do we systematically apply a GESI lens to capture and communicate the impact of our work? And that is what we've heard about the GESI framework, which focuses on the 5 domains of access, decision-making, participation, systems, and well-being. These domains are interlinked, so that's why you see that sometimes there's a relationship between them as there should. So in the next slide, I say that you can see in the next slide is really focused on change at the individual, household, community, and societal levels. We seek to bring about GESI transformation around all of those levels because, as we have heard from our speakers, we don't just exist as individuals. We have to exist within a family, within the community and society more generally. I hope you can still hear me. And then we also say that in order for our programs to be transformative, our theory of change is that we have to ensure that we change social norms, perceptions, and behaviors along any of those GESI domains that we have seen before. We recognize that gender and social issues affect individuals differently, but also in overlapping ways. So, for example, if someone is a female, that they may also be persons with disability or maybe belong to a lower caste. And so they may have multiple overlapping vulnerabilities. So our programs must, address simultaneously both the gender inequality and social exclusion issues within our programming. So in our next slide, we are looking at the end goal ultimately of our programs is to really enhance agency. And we think about agency by saying that the people we serve, the most vulnerable, are not just mere victims, and so we are not there just to help them because they are so helpless, but they have power within them. They understand, they can develop their own capacities for their self-understanding, and they can gain control over their lives and their resources and their beliefs and values and attitudes. They can also change those. So become active participants and agents of change. We can only facilitate that, all of us as researchers or development practitioners, but we shouldn't look at them as mere victims, but active participants in development who are also agents of change. And that agency is both at the individual and collective level, and can only be facilitated. And in the next slide, we think about JESSI transformation when there is empowerment. And here we are focused on also empowerment that is facilitated by challenging the deep structures of inequality and exclusion. We look for what has worked or not in applying empowerment approaches. And these include like the social model or the twin track, mostly for disability inclusion, positive child and adolescent and youth development. And it was so exciting to listen to how this program has been involving children and young people, and male engagement, working with men and boys, empowerment of women and girls, and economic empowerment is part of that empowerment approach. And then we also believe that if we do all of these activities, then we will be contributing to JESSI transformative change. So today, as we celebrate the work that this project has done, we know that it's a promising practice, but we will be working towards a best practice where we see JESSI transformation based on the recommendations that have been made and how that can be replicated in other areas across the world, not just in Indonesia. So thank you so much. Over to you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Jacqueline Ogega. So, ladies and gentlemen, next, please welcome Dr. Leticia Enconia, Technical Advisor of JESSI World Vision United States, will present about JESSI promising practices.
Thank you very much, and hello, everyone. I am really excited to be here, and I'm delighted to share a brief overview of the process we have used and we continue to use in the documentation of JESSI promising practices. We define a JESSI promising practice as an activity and a strategy, methodology, or approach that have worked effectively and they continue to work effectively, and it has produced successful outcomes related to gender equality and social inclusion. It also needs to have the potential for application in other settings. In finding the answers to the 3 questions that Jackie Ogega had just mentioned, World Vision US embarked on the documentation of gender equality and social inclusion promising practices beginning the last fiscal year. We started by developing tools that will help us to be more systematic in our documentation. And this included the developing qualification criteria, which was based on our JESSI approach and theory of change that my Dr. Jackie Ogega have just presented. In our documentation, we are actually looking into any evidence of improved access, participation, decision-making systems, both formal and informal, and also improved well-being of the most vulnerable children and their families. So a promising practice should adhere to at least one of the 5 JESSI domains. The more, the better. If we adhere to all of them, of 3, 4, we still we are looking to documenting that kind of practice. You have heard from project participants who have shared their testimonies on the impact of IRED project on some of these domains, and this is really exciting. We also look into whether the project used any approach that supports the 5 JESI domains. And this is what my my colleague Jacqueline Ogega just mentioned, in promoting agency empowerment and transformation, and at individual, household, community, and societal levels. And we are looking to whether there are any evidence of addressing issues of intersection or overlapping vulnerabilities. We also look at whether a project included engagement of men or boys as a component of implementation. In the next slide, I'm going to highlight the process itself. So after developing the tools or the criteria, in last fiscal year, we launched the global call for submission of projects. And we welcomed the application from World Vision programs in any sector. World Vision have many sectors, so we were accepting application from any sector, from any country around the world. And we received a lot of applications, but based on the funding we had at that time, we selected 6 promising practices. And this fiscal year, we got additional funding to document the 7th promising practice. And the next slide, I'm going to highlight the documentation itself. There are 2 levels of documentation that we do. First, we do a rigorous review of available information. This is kind of review of secondary data. And we look into the documents that are submitted by countries, and we review them using a JESI lens. So we look at any evidence of JESI impacts that fits into the criteria that we established. So we reviewed monitoring data, progress reports, baseline, midterm, and final evaluations. Depends on where the project was. Some of the project had ended, so we look at the final project evaluations. Some were just starting, so we look at baseline. We looked at all those. We also looked at external evaluations reports, any publications. We looked at success stories and case studies, and any impact narratives that were made available to us. So that's the first level of documentation. And then the second level of documentation is collecting additional evidences. This is mainly primary evidence of JESI impact. And in our review, during the first level of documentation, we kind of identify gaps in JESI. You have heard today from our presenter of the IRED research report. They mentioned that IRED originally was not designed using a JESI lens. So there could be some JESI gaps that still exist because the project did not use a JESI lens originally. So we look at those gaps, and then we share recommendations that will help enhance JESI. And after that, countries will work on those recommendations and implement some activities that will help strengthen JESI. And after we selected those countries, we also provided grants to enhance JESI, and also we provide technical support as they collect this second level of documentation. We also recommended some of, we provide one of the recommendation is to hire just a person. Some countries did not have a just a person to support the implementation of documentation of promising practices. So we were able to support these countries in the hiring process, so that some of them actually have hired just focal points to help coordinate the implementation of this activity. Some countries already had a focal points that support this implementation. So what we've heard today is the second level of documentation. And after, these levels, and then we will see that we have audio-visual documentation where we collect video documentation of how the project improved access, participation, decision-making systems, and well-being. And each of these domains is having a short video to highlight the impact of JESI in that particular domain. We are also collecting photos and developing storybooks or success story books to share these evidences of GESI impacts. In addition to audiovisual documentation, we are also developing written documentation. That include research reports. What you have heard presented today was a research report. This is the written documentation. We also collect impact narratives, success stories, case studies, fact sheets, and any other form of written documentation. And all these are based on primary data collected using a GESI lens. And next slide, you'll see that in addition to using a GESI theory of change, we are also looking at into the extent to which the project is moving towards GESI responsiveness. And we're using what we call a GESI continuum. The GESI continuum describes the degree of project's GESI responsiveness. And in our GESI continuum, we evaluate the project based on the extent to which it incorporates GESI. So in your continuum, you'll see there are two categories. You have a GESI responsive project and a GESI not responsive project. Our goal is to move towards GESI transformation. So we want to, that's our ultimate goal. We want to achieve GESI transformation. So whatever stage in the GESI continuum the project is, we would then recommend our strategies to help the project to move towards transformation. And of course, we provide the technical support to help that project. And we also highlight at each stage of the continuum where the project is, we try to highlight whatever promising practices can be collected in that stage of the project. For example, if a project is a GESI sensitive project, we look into that sensitivity and what evidence of GESI impact we could extract from that stage. And the next, in the next slide, I am going to finally mention that in addition to all those, we look at other things too that help us to answer the three questions that Dr. Jackie Ogega had mentioned. So we looked at elements that are replicable and how they can work in different contexts, because we just don't want to document and stop there. We want to scale up these promising practices that have worked very well. So we looked at whether this project or activity or approach could work in different contexts. We also looked at innovation, how the project improved or changed an existing practice to adapt to a particular community or to a particular target audience. We look at sustainability. We want our project to be sustainable. So we looked at whether there are some elements or that can be continued into future, even if the project has ended. Is this community, for example, able to continue doing what it's doing to enhance GESI? We looked at whether the project can be scaled up. And finally, but not least, we look at faith-based approaches. We look at how the project engage with faith leaders, for example, or whether the project utilize faith-based networks and infrastructures to carry out its project activities. So those are some of the methodology that we use in the implementation of our GESI promising practices documentation activity. Thank you so much, and over to you, Sarah. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Leticia, for the presentation. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, now we are moving to the second project, Moringa. We'll first listen to overview of Moringa project and its gender inclusive financial literacy training, or we can call it as GIFT. It will come from the National Project Manager of Moringa, Ms. Sheni Hortensia from Wahana Visi Indonesia, Ms. Ellie Wong, Economic Empowerment Manager, World Vision Australia, and also Clay O'Brien, Financial Inclusion Advisor, World Vision Australia. For the first session, we will offer to Ms. Ellie.
Thanks, Sarah. It's a pleasure to be here today with you all. I'm Ellie Wong. I'm the manager of the Economic Empowerment team at World Vision Australia. I'm going to provide a brief introduction to our gender inclusive financial literacy training that's been piloted in Indonesia. But this package looks at targeting rural households in particular. So I guess I'll just get straight into it in terms of what are the key problems that we're seeking to solve with this activity or this approach. There are 4 key problems I'd like to highlight. First, without financial literacy skills and access to finance, it's difficult for smallholder farmers and rural households to transition to more commercial agriculture to benefit from increased incomes. As we know, many smallholder farmers and rural households face low financial resilience to diverse shocks. As we've seen over the last couple of years, there are significant shocks and risks linked to climate change, linked to the pandemic that are difficult to manage without strong financial management and savings habits. And without savings for emergencies, there are risks that households might sell their assets, resort to eating less, or even consider child marriage or child labour in extreme circumstances. The second key issue here is around the lack of access to quality financial literacy programs. Financial service providers are often running training that is more focused on products rather than financial literacy competencies. And of course, these barriers have look different for women compared to men. Women often have less financial knowledge, lower access to formal financial services. We know there's a global gender gap, with women representing a larger proportion of the unbanked globally. And of course, women face barriers, as mentioned by my colleagues earlier, linked to agency. Women face challenges, specific challenges as it relates to financial literacy, linked to decision-making, linked to business and household budgets. And this links to, broader social and gender norms or attitudes on who should be making decisions in a household. And this can limit child wellbeing outcomes, given what we know around the evidence linking women's economic empowerment to increase spending on children's education and health. So what is our gift package or gender inclusive financial literacy training? It's a non-biased approach to financial literacy that seeks to be gender inclusive. So we designed it specifically for couples to become more financially literate. And it's a practical way to look at not just women's and men's access to financial literacy, but also looking at women's agency. So we aim to see that women and men have access to financial literacy and knowledge and skills so they can manage their money and save for the future. This can help families better benefit from the income they earn, as well as ensure they have savings to help them respond and adapt to economic, social, and environmental shocks. However, we know that household budgeting is not just about having the right knowledge and skills, it's also about financial decision making and agency. And agency often sounds very conceptual, but really when it comes to families and households, it's a very practical and real thing, because what actually is a household budget, but a series of decisions about what's important to your family. So the curriculum aims to ensure that both husbands and wives have a voice in determining the financial priorities for their family. Important for us at World Vision is thinking about children in this context. So GIFT focuses on 4 key modules. Respectful relationships is at the foundation, moving on to the family vision for the future, planning for the future, and finally, managing your money and supporting your partner at work. GIFT is an activity that can be combined with World Vision's other livelihood models, such as value chain development or market systems development, and of course would be benefit from other gender models that seek to tackle harmful social norms and unequal gender relations at the household or community level. In terms of our approach, we've been working on this for a little while. In 2019, World Vision Australia first did a literature review on good practices in financial literacy, behaviour economics and gender transformative programming to create the curriculum, which was then piloted in Laos and Indonesia in 2020 until now, and several other countries in the region, including Bangladesh and others, are looking at scaling this approach and adapting it for their context. But that's all from me, and I'll now hand over to my colleague Clay O'Brien, our financial inclusion advisor, who will speak more about the curriculum in more detail. Over to you, Clay.
Thank you very much, Ellie, and hello, everybody. Based on those best models of financial literacy practice that Ellie mentioned had been taken into account through an extensive review, some of the key elements of GIFT are shown on the slide. It uses multiple short sessions rather than 1 or 2 long trainings. This improves knowledge retention and prevents participants being overwhelmed by the content. Experiential learning is employed, including role plays, games, and case studies with which people can empathize. Simple analogies are used, which can explain complex terms. A cash flow tree and a pictorial seasonal calendar are examples. Rules of thumb are easy to recall and implement. For example, save more than you earn. Commitment devices are employed, such as the writing or drawing of savings plans and other goals. Finally, links are made to savings groups and financial service providers so that participants can access financial services. This creates what is called a teachable moment, where participants can put into action immediately what they have learned. Next slide, please. There are 4 key financial literacy competencies which are highlighted here. First of all, setting a family vision, which has both a fixed time horizon, such as 1 or 3 years, as well as fixed targets, for example, improved income or better housing. Saving skills should be focused on both these types of aspirational goals, but also improving resilience in the face of negative events, such as natural disasters or health issues. Thirdly, managing money requires the ability to identify needs compared to wants and to prioritize them as necessary. Participants should be able to plan income, saving, and expenditure, taking into account regular, irregular, and changing income and commitments. Similarly, taking up responsible finance means differentiating between the use of credit to increase future income against borrowing for consumption. It is also important that people are able to choose credit products carefully, taking into account the interest rate, the repayment schedule, and the overall cost. Next slide, please. But as Ellie mentioned, GIFT also focuses on promoting women's agency in practice. To shift power relations and harmful norms, the programming approach must go beyond the usual skills in financial literacy training, often conducted in livelihoods programming. There is also a need for an approach that is gender transformative, and that is applied in several of the GIFT gender-focused sessions. Gender transformative programming actively examines and questions gender norms and power imbalances between men and women, and seeks change by promoting equitable alternatives. These sessions were adapted from key modules in the World Vision and Promundo Men Care Couples training. And the slide here shows an example of project materials, contrasting the harmful behavior linked to financial decision-making on the left with the more equitable alternative, where women, men, and families share decision-making so that the whole family can benefit as a result. Next slide, please. In teaching respectful relationship, GIFT covers key gender equality concepts and sessions. This enables households to understand a range of issues, such as the benefits of both women and men setting the family vision and joint household budgeting goals, the difference between gender and sex, and how attitudes and norms shape perceptions and behaviors, how the whole family can benefit from shared financial decision-making, and the benefits of equitable distribution of paid and unpaid work. On the right is a quote from Rizaldi Tamate, one of the GIFT participants in Indonesia. You will hear from him and his wife later. But now I'd like to introduce Isha, my colleague from Indonesia, who will present more detail from the GIFT pilot conducted as part of the World Vision Moringa project. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Hello, everybody. So Moringa stands for more income generated for poor families in Indonesia. This project applies inclusive market system development, or IMSD approach, a market-based approach where we work in two pathways. First pathway is market system focus, where we work with private sector partners to overcome the main systemic constraint faced by the smallholder farmers. The intention is to change the way private sector does business in those markets so that they become more inclusive. For example, in maize value chain, we find the main constraint is low productivity. And so we work with Syngenta, an input provider company. We introduce improved business model that provides farmers with wider access to high quality seed and knowledge in better agricultural practices in order to increase maize farmer productivity so their income will be increased. As a result, up to now, almost 3,800 maize farmer households experience an increase in income of 165%. The second pathway is household focus, where we increase the capacity of households to engage with the market and manage their finance so it can support the business and accelerate the market system changes. In Moringa project, GIFT was done in response to the gender assessment performed by the project, where it found a low rate of household financial management and low rate of equal decision-making within the households. GIFT can provide participants with an understanding of the benefits in joint planning, management, and decision-making of resources by men and women in the households. As a result, the household was able to manage their increased income properly, fulfill their children's needs, and reach their dreams to have a better life in the future. Next slide, please. On this slide, we present the impact assessment result of GIFT implementation in Moringa project at the knowledge level. As you can see, on average, more than 50% of participants experience improved knowledge on financial management, financial services, and gender perspective. At the behavior level, the changes we can see are more participants are now engaged in financial planning, more participants conduct equal decision-making, and more participants have now increased their saving balance, even some changes being very significant. Moreover, another impact is that the credit union or cooperative is replicating GIFT, which is good for their branding and facilitates their being contracted by other organizations to deliver GIFT in their assisted area. In addition, they also attracted an increased number of new members. The implementation of GIFT in East Nusa Tenggara was conducted in partnership with financial institutions, such as a credit union and or cooperative. Next slide, please. The last slide, I want to share with you is regarding the lesson learned we took from the implementation of GIFT in Moringa project. Firstly, gender can be a big concept that is sometimes hard for the community to take in. So GIFT provides a practical way to implement the gender mainstreaming, not just theoretically speaking, but the model itself can be very related to their daily lives. And with the simulation provided, it makes it easier to understand and to apply to their real life. The second lesson learned is by cooperating with financial institutions, we are not just facilitating more people to participate in GIFT, but it also enable the credit union to boost business growth. In the future, we will work with the credit union to design the business case so credit union can see more clearly the impact on the business side. Once the business case is proven to be profitable, it is most likely to be continued after the project end. Thirdly, GIFT also has a specific session talking about the need for emergency funds. Even though the community has repeatedly experienced unexpected events such as crop failure, earthquake, cyclone, and so on, where these events are quite disruptive to their lives, including financially, the concept of having emergency funds is quite new for most GIFT participants. So from this session, it makes them aware of the need to have emergency fund so they can survive the unexpected occasion. The last lesson we learned is that the involvement of local leaders, whether religious leaders or cultural leaders as the champion, can reduce the resistance of the participants. It is very helpful when we work first with the local leaders to deliver a gift to the community. The local leaders' influence can help increase buy-in from the community. I think that's all for me. Thank you for the opportunity to share. And I hand it back to Sarah to continue.
Okay, thank you so much for all panelists. So, ladies and gentlemen, next we will listen to the experience of a family who participates in GIFT program. This session will be in Bahasa Indonesia, so please turn on the English interpretation function. I will over to Adit.
Oke, thank you Sarah. Halo semua, kembali lagi dengan saya Adit. Bersama saya udah hadir Ibu Agustina dan juga Bapak Rizaldi Timate, keluarga petani dari Kupang NTT yang mengikuti pelatihan GIFT dalam proyek Moringa Wahana Visi Indonesia. Selamat malam Pak Rizaldi dan Ibu Agustina.
Selamat malam.
Baik, Pak Rizaldi dan Ibu Agustina hadirin di sini mungkin akan berkenalan dengan Pak Rizaldi dan Ibu Agustina. Boleh, silakan Pak.
Baik, terima kasih. Mungkin sebelumnya kami mohon izin buka masker.
Baik, Pak, baik.
Baik, selamat malam. Terima kasih atas waktu dan kesempatan yang diberikan kepada kami. Dan terima kasih dan selamat bergabung bagi kita semua. Mungkin di awal kami memperkenalkan, saya nama Rizaldi Timate, umur saya 31 tahun, pekerjaan dan rutinitas setiap hari sebagai seorang petani hortikultura, dan istri saya bernama Ibu Agustina Adu.
Halo.
Umur 31 tahun dan rutinitas dan pekerjaannya adalah petani hortikultura dan juga seorang pegawai swasta di salah satu perusahaan di Nusa Tenggara Timur di Kabupaten Kupang. Dan kami memiliki satu orang anak laki-laki namanya Cleo Geraldi Timate, umurnya 5 tahun dan dia sekarang masih di jenjang pendidikan PAUD. Mungkin itu.
Baik, terima kasih Pak Risaldi. Halo Cleo. Wah, anaknya sudah besar, sudah keren ini Pak. Siap banget ini. Baik Pak, mungkin Bapak dan Ibu Agustina boleh cerita tentang awal mula dapat terlibat dalam program Moringa Wahana Visi Indonesia dan mengapa nih mau ikut program GIFT ini. Silakan Pak.
Baik, terima kasih. Mungkin yang pertama ketika awal mula terlibat dalam kegiatan GIFT ini, kami diundang dan menghadiri pertemuan atau untuk menghadiri acara pelatihan GIFT, dan undangan itu kami terima dari beberapa keluarga di desa kami yang juga termasuk dalam suatu kelompok tani dalam desa kami, dan kami ada beberapa keluarga mengikuti acara pelatihan tersebut. Dan ketika kami mendapat undangan, kami merespon undangan itu dan kemudian kami menghadiri. Nah, kemudian kenapa sehingga kami mau untuk menghadiri pelatihan ini tersebut? Mungkin dari pelatihan ini kami berpikir bahwa ada pelajaran baru, ada pengalaman baru, dan juga ada motivasi-motivasi yang mungkin kami peroleh pada pelatihan GIFT tersebut.
Baik, terima kasih Pak Risaldi. Tadi ternyata Pak Risaldi dapat info dari keluarga dan juga Pak Risaldi memiliki niatan biar jauh lebih maju lagi ke depannya. Baik, selanjutnya boleh gak sih Pak Risaldi berbagi dengan kami yang ada di sini tentang apa sih yang Pak Risaldi dan Ibu Agustina lakukan selama dalam pelatihan GIFT dan apa juga manfaat yang dirasakan nih Pak. Boleh silakan Pak.
Baik, mungkin ketika melakukan pelatihan selama 3 hari yang kami lakukan, ada banyak pelajaran, ada banyak teori yang kami terima. Di antaranya mungkin yang pertama tentang kesetaraan gender, kemudian yang berikut mengatur visi dalam menggapai tujuan dalam keluarga, kemudian bagaimana cara menabung, bagaimana cara meminjam dengan bijak, kemudian bagaimana mengelola dan mengatur keuangan dalam rumah tangga. Nah, manfaat yang kami peroleh dari pelatihan tersebut, dari materi-materi yang kami dapat, mungkin sedikit banyak kami sudah menerapkan dalam keluarga kami. Di antaranya mungkin yang pertama, kami menentukan visi, dan waktu itu kami ditanya oleh dari pihak WVI bahwa tujuan dan visi kami dalam keluarga itu apa. Ketika bertanya kepada saya memiliki visi bahwa saya ingin menggali satu sumur bor yang berada di lokasi pertanian hortikultura atau lokasi pertanian yang sekarang saya lagi kerjakan. Kemudian istri saya memiliki suatu tujuan bahwa ingin membeli mobil. Nah, kemudian dari perbedaan visi, kemudian kami menyatukannya dan kami berembuk untuk menyatukan visi tersebut. Dan mungkin yang kami sampaikan itu mungkin itu tujuan jangka panjang, namun kami bersepakat bahwa untuk jangka pendek atau sampai menengah, kami menentukan bahwa kami harus mendahulukan untuk merenovasi rumah kami dengan cara menabung dan juga dari hasil panen yang kami peroleh dari hasil perkebunan kami sedikit-sedikit menyicil bahan-bahan yang tidak mudah rusak, yang bisa disimpan lama agar kami bisa merenovasi rumah. Nah, kemudian hal yang berikut yang kami terapkan dalam keluarga kami yaitu yang kedua, mungkin waktu itu kami mendapat satu pelajaran bahwa ada simulasi amplop yang mungkin bisa kami terapkan dalam keluarga kami, dan itu juga sudah kami lakukan ketika beberapa hari melakukan pelatihan. Beberapa hari kemudian istri saya sudah dengan spontan saja bahwa ketika pulang sampai ke rumah dia sudah menyiapkan 6 amplop. Beberapa amplop mungkin ada sekitar 6 kurang lebih. Dia menyimpannya di meja lalu memberitahukan kepada saya sebagai suami bahwa ini ada buah 6 amplop, dan ketika kita mendapatkan hasil panen atau hasil yang diperoleh dari penghasilan lain, kita sisipkan pada pos-pos yang telah disediakan di amplop-amplop tersebut. Nah, kemudian hal yang berikut yang kami lakukan adalah kami melakukan kalender musim panen dan musim panen dan musim tanam. Nah, dengan tujuan supaya agar ke depan kami bisa mengetahui di bulan-bulan mana, di musim-musim mana penghasilan kami di atas rata-rata dan penghasilan kami di bawah rata-rata. Nah, dari situ kami bisa bercermin mungkin di tahun-tahun yang akan datang kami bisa mengganti tanaman yang lain yang mungkin sesuai dengan harga pasar yang bisa mencukupkan kebutuhan rumah tangga kami. Mungkin.
Dan pada bulan Februari lalu saya membuka tabungan di Koperasi Monaven dengan tujuan untuk menabung sebagai tabungan darurat. Bila mana pada bulan-bulan tertentu hasil dari usaha tanam tidak mendapat hasil atau gagal panen, dari tabungan tersebut bisa digunakan untuk kebutuhan di dalam rumah tangga kami.
Baik, wah ternyata banyak sekali yang sudah diimplementasikan Pak Rizaldi dan Bu Agustina. Seperti tadi amplop, wah itu keren banget Pak. Saya sangat salut dengan keluarga Bapak dan juga Ibu. Baik Pak, selanjutnya apakah Ibu atau Bapak ini menyebarkan pengetahuan yang didapat dari pelatihan GIFT ini kepada pihak lain? Jika iya, siapa tuh Pak? Boleh silakan Pak.
Baik, untuk saat ini kami belum menerapkan kepada orang lain. Saat ini kami menerapkan dulu di dalam rumah tangga kami. Setelah kami sudah berhasil atau mencapai tujuan, kami akan menerapkan kepada orang lain. Terima kasih.
Oh baik, ternyata memang harusnya di internal dulu ya Ibu ya. Di dalam dulu kita terapkan bersama-sama, baru kita boleh sharing-sharing keluar gitu ya. Oke, terakhir Pak, Bu, apa pesan Ibu dan Bapak untuk kita semua nih yang ada dalam Zoom ini? Silakan Bapak atau Ibu.
Pesan saya, kegiatan-kegiatan seperti ini bisa dilakukan kepada petani-petani lain di tempat lain atau di desa kami, karena banyak yang belum tahu tentang literasi keuangan dalam keluarga. Terima kasih.
Baik, mungkin yang pesan yang berikut, yang kedua mungkin juga dari saya untuk kita semua, mari dalam keluarga kita menentukan visi dalam keluarga agar supaya kita bisa mencapai kesejahteraan dalam keluarga kita.
Amin. Wah, keren banget pesan dari Ibu dan Bapak ini buat kita semua yang ada di Zoom ini. Tadi sudah dijelaskan pengalaman dari Pak Rizaldi dan juga Ibu Agustina bahwasanya mereka sangat senang sekali mengikuti program ini. Benar ya Pak ya?
Iya.
Mantap, keren sekali. Terima kasih Pak Rizaldi dan Ibu Agustina sudah berbagi kita semua. Dan juga selamat malam Bapak Ibu dan juga selamat tidur Cleo.
Belum.
Baik, terima kasih Pak Ibu.
Sama-sama.
Baik, akan saya kembalikan lagi ke Kak Sarah. Silakan Kak Sarah.
Okay, thank you so much, Adit. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the last session of this GESI Promising Practice Project, IRED and Moringa, CSW 66 Parallel Event. I thank you for you listening the Voices of Indonesian Women and Children. If you would like to get the book of IRED project slides about GIFT in Moringa project and other materials, please download it from Wahana Visi Indonesia website www.wahanavisi.org. And also please connect with us through our email and social media page here. Okay, there is the book. You can download it from our website, www.wahanavisi.org. And also please connect with us in our email and social media page here. So thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining our event. And see you next time. Goodbye.